Peter, for the last game, I'm sure you had a chance to go back and look at it. Did you think there was one situation on a set piece where they saved it with a guy with a header at the goal line, and it looked like he was within the goal? I mean, it's a tricky angle and everything like that. So I mean, I'm not saying definitively they blew it, but it seemed like it was enough that, he took off from behind the goal line. He landed behind the goal line. That would seem like that's where video is supposed to come in, and it didn't happen. Is that your opinion on it? Just your thoughts on how that went down and whether or not it was handled right?
And EPL's got goal line technology, and there's been a couple goals that you don't need goal line technology to see, even in the EPL, that they're goals, and it didn't work. So I know the exact play you're talking about. Sitting on my side, being that we look like we scored it, I'm telling you we scored it. If it was the other way around, I'm telling you we saved it. So it does look like it. It does. But it's not conclusive. So it's hard one to say.
Just another one from the last game. The goal that tied it at 2. Obviously, Beasler and the defenders thought he was offsides. Did you get a chance to look at it and see if they got that one right?
No, he wasn't by any means. No, he was not. We should have closed that ball down way earlier. We should have done it 45 yards out from when we first won the header. We gave the ball away. I mean, I could go on and on all the mistakes we made on that play. And it's not convenient. It's just reality. The bottom line is that I said this last time we were on the phone or we were on Zoom. It was all about trying to get the result and get ourselves, moving ahead. And sometimes these games, and you see it, night after night, these games are they're a tale of two halves. Something happens in one half, you think, to be honest with you, Colorado was actually playing pretty well against us. They were putting it on us in for a period of time in that first half. And, and I'm sure that they're sitting on their side thinking things are going really well. And then, they get a guy thrown out. I mean, it's just a bunch of things happen. And it's a lot like our game against Minnesota. And so that's why, the game is always funny in that regard. It's never nice to you. That's for sure. I rarely feel the soccer gods looking on us, and touching us with some nice fairy dust. It doesn't happen all too often.
Coach, you've always preached about Kyrie Shelton's efforts off the ball, but so far in this tournament, he's added a lot of productivity up on top with the attack, with 2 goals so far in this tournament. What can you say about his impact, not just on your team, but in this tournament as well?
He still works very hard. What I would say is that he's incredibly effective on the front line, but he has sort of the same impact that I think Kai Kamara did and CJ Sapong did when they played here, in that because of his physique, because of his size, and then you add the other component of his work ethic, his understanding of the game. He's an incredibly unselfish player, both with and without the ball. Because of those qualities, he winds up being a mismatch for a lot of guys out wide. And, again, it's not easy. The run he makes where the guy, basically football tackles him, open field tackles him, and gets thrown out. That play, there's a lot of players that don't make that run just because they just don't feel like it at that point, because you're usually tired at that point, and you don't make that run because you just don't want to be any more tired. You want to rest. And he makes that run. And those are the things that he does that changes things. What I'm happy to see for him is that he's being rewarded with all the movement and the good movement that he's making, with the chance to finish, and he's actually putting them away. So I'm happy for him as well, not just the team, but him too, because I like that he's getting rewarded.
You mentioned ahead of the tournament that you thought it would take about 3 games for teams to really find that rhythm. Where do you feel like your team is at going into this Wednesday game, if you're looking at it from that 3-game, measurement?
Yeah, I think, you could go back into many World Cups and you can look at it because it's the same format, right? And you have your Italies and your Germanys and those countries, and they kind of grow with the tournament. And I feel as if that there's been a lot of times that we have started guns a blazing, and I'm not going to say that we've died out, because I don't think that reflects it at all. But I would say that we're just probably not at our high point when we get to that end. And so the fact that maybe we started out slow and have had to fight for some things actually has been good for us. I still look at this game as another league game. It's our fifth league game. That's the way I'm looking at it. And that's, I think, how the guys are looking at it at the moment. We need to go out and get a result for our league. Right now we're, 3 wins and a loss, and we want to try to win this next one. And that's really what we're after here.
Hey, Peter.
Pete, Real Salt Lake, what have you seen out of them so far in their first 2 games as you get ready to face them?
I think actually that they are moving the ball really well. Their combination play through the midfield has been of real high quality. They seem to have a real competitive nature within their team. And they've always had, Rusnick and Kralik, guys that I think can change the game. Just really good players. And then they've added a few other guys in Bird on the left who really moves well off the ball. But I just have been impressed with the way that they've moved the ball throughout the 2 games that they played with a lot of confidence.
Coach, how does having Tim Melia back in the mix change anything strategically for your team going into this game?
Strategically, really nothing at all. Obviously, Tim has been in between the pipes for quite some time for us. So consistency is always good, obviously, if it nets results. And so it's I know that there's been some people that have been pretty critical of Richard, but I actually think Richard is a good goalkeeper, and I think he has a lot of good seasons, years ahead of him. He's good. He's got a lot of really good qualities. Goalkeepers are a much different situation than players, in that they need games, they need rhythm with the team. And the fact that Timmy has played as many as he has, I think it'll be pretty easy for him to kind of jump right back in to the group.
Hey, Peter. So Wednesday's game, you start early, you're all finished by noon. What do you do the rest of the day? Is it a regen session, or do you let the boys have? And then just psychologically, typically you guys wake up, you've got, at least a morning to think about a game, if not all day from the evening kickoff. With this one, the boys wake up, go straight into it. Does that have a psychological effect? And do you almost prefer just going straight into it rather than having a whole day to think about it?
Well, I do think there is something to be said about having to wait all day to play a game. And that's not for me. I never liked it. The fact that the guys are going to get up and get right to it right away. Yeah, I think not having to wait around will probably be a good thing. I will say I do think that the second half is going to be a difficult half. I think for both teams. I think it's just going to be extremely warm, very humid. Sun is really starting to bear down on you at that point, and I think it'll have a major effect on the game.
Peter, after the game on Friday night, you made a comment. I think it was talking to Seren about psychologically what the team had been through the past week in terms of they were stuck in their own rooms. They weren't able to have that camaraderie and those types of things they had gone through, and then also dealing with that tough loss in the first game. Can you juxtapose that to what this week is like, if the guys are able to actually spend time together now and coming off of the exact opposite type of result? How different are things now compared to what they were like for you last week?
Last couple of nights, we've gone out to dinner to a couple of different restaurants. It's actually feeling like, you're back to your normal, we're getting real silverware. We have plates. Actually is pretty good. So, I think you almost go into the restaurant and think that, hey, you're kind of back in the regular world. I really think it's been good for the last couple of days. Thursday we end our every single day of testing. That has been a pain, but the guys today seemed good. They seemed focused. They seemed in good spirits, but they seemed focused today. Really, we're solid. And, look, we've been testing negative every single day, and now it's becoming clockwork. I actually say that I think everybody now, and we were probably with that positive that we had, we're probably still put a little trepidation in the bubble maybe, but I think now everybody realizes we're in it. Everybody just, is going along and testing, and everything is good. And, everything's good at the moment. I think the guys are feeling pretty good. They are different for sure. It's a much looser environment than it has been for sure.
You also, when you were talking about what the conditions are going to be like on Wednesday by the second half when the sun is bearing down, the evidence has shown so far in this competition that there are a lot of goals being scored in the last 15 minutes of games and in stoppage time. Did you expect that basically because of the fitness level and the conditions? And I'm curious, as a manager, what kind of challenges maybe that are unique to this competition come about because of that, maybe compared to when you're playing in normal conditions?
We did expect that. We really did. We expected that late in the games, or at least the last 20 to 30 minutes, that the games were going to become more wide open, and probably a lot of goals would be scored, or at least a lot of chances would be had. I can say this now. I wouldn't have said this before game one, but for us, it was also important for us to stay with a similar group of guys game after game, because we're also trying to build some rhythm and trying to build some consistency, and then finally trying to build some guys that have 90-minute fitness. It's hard to do if you're changing lineup around every game. It's different if you have a bunch of guys that are already really fit. It's just totally different. And you think about the World Cup. The World Cup comes on the heels of most players having played a full season. So it's not like they're trying to get 90 minutes fit. They are fit. This is a different challenge in that regard, because you're not coming off of a season. You're just starting your season. And so for us, the idea is that we had to get a group of guys into some type of rhythm, and then we could start playing around with the lineup, or playing around with, substitutions. And so that part is at least starting to come. And obviously what we're looking forward to is what the schedule looks like after the tournament's finished as well, because, not to have a big amount of time between the last game you play and then the next game you play, because then you're kind of back to square one again.
Coach, speaking of lineup changes in particular, the back line last season looked a lot different due to injuries, causing a lot of positional changes. Now that you have a bit more of a solidified lineup back there, how have you assessed that? It's been a small sample size this season, but with Puncic and Beasler in the middle, then Luis Martins and Graham Zusi starting on the outside, how have you been liking what's been working back there?
I thought we were really good in our first 2 games of the season. I think since we've gotten down here, I think we're not as in sync as we normally are. And again, I just think it's lack of a lot of things, but I do think that we're growing, we're progressing in the right direction with some things. And the other thing too is that I'm just happy to say that the other guys that we have on the roster are getting fit. They're being able to acclimate to the weather a lot better. So they're becoming more of a they're in a place where they're going to be we're able to use them as we continue to move forward. Hopefully in this next game and then afterwards, which is a good thing.
Hey, Pete, I know you said before, like, you're treating this game like every other league game. It's just a normal regular season game. But even then, just because of the implications of a win will get you through, a tie should get you through. But is there any more pressure just because of the implications to qualify?
No, because I think the thing is for us, it's a league game. That's how we're looking at it. It's truly a league game. It's and to your point, when we go into a league game, we want to get a result. So if we get a result, we have a chance of going through. The first objective is to just concentrate on it being a league game, and that's how we have to look at it.
Peter, you were talking about the back line. I mentioned this to you after the game. You didn't have the kind of possession that you liked, particularly in that first half. What about the defense up front? What about getting the ball taken away before it gets back to the back line? How have you felt that the guys up front have been?
Yeah, look, I think it's a good question because I do think that defending starts with everything up front. I do think, though, that you have to take consideration sometimes that there's things that you can't do. Is that you can't go out and just chase a team. If a team looks to hit a ball 60 yards from their back to the front, there's not much the guys up front can do other than if they're just all the way man marking. And in those situations, a lot of them that we weren't doing that because of the way the game was playing, and not because they were doing something great and we were doing something poor. It's just the way the game was, the rhythm of the game. A lot of games are. They just decided to play a lot of long balls, and it took us a little too long to adjust in that first half because they were playing a lot of balls from left to right, and I don't think that we adjusted fast enough to that situation. And it was more of a backline thing than maybe the rest of the group, if you will. There's no doubt that we want to be a pressing team. I mean, we want to be a pressing team, and we can press. We have press. We do press. I just don't think that we're completely fit enough to be able to sustain it, not only for 90 minutes, but in this kind of heat. And so what happens is you have to be a little bit more calculated. And sometimes when you allow the group to be a little more calculated, sometimes some guys can take some plays off, which then puts in hesitation, and then you leave some holes open. When we're and again, I think we're getting there. Each game we're getting better and better with it. We have more power to be able to do it for longer periods of time. Guys, triggers of when to do it are becoming more recognizable. And so I just think that we're getting better with it from game to game. And I think that will also assist on the back line as well.
Peter, how much time do you work on, 11v10, 11v9, or 10v11, 9v11? How much does that, actually get worked on how you got to shift gears and play differently?
Well, here it's a lot more difficult because you have less time in between the games, and you're really just trying to get the group that played a chance to recover and then, get ready to play again. Well, like a good example is, today we did a little video at 7:15 a.m. and a meeting, and then we went out to the training field, started at 8, and we actually played, 10v10, and we worked on specific things in and around our game and what we want to do for the upcoming game. And it actually was really good. It was a really good training. Like I said, the guys were very concentrated. I think the video really painted a picture of what we were looking for in this upcoming game. And the more that you can do that, it's one of the things I've always said. The difficulty about us being in the middle of the country is everybody thinks it's great from a travel perspective. Well, when we got to go to Vancouver, Seattle, Portland, San Jose, New England, those areas, even New York's, we lose time when we come back, just because of travel, and we lose a day usually of training a week. So here now you're losing it just because of the short amount of time between games and the preparation. So that's the difficulty, and the heat doesn't allow you to spend a lot of time out in the field as well. So you got to figure out other ways to accomplish that. I think the meeting and the video today really helped a lot with not only our training, but the objectives that we're going to try to accomplish in this upcoming game.
Peter, thank you very much for the time this morning. We'll take a short break and be joined shortly by Jerso Fernandez and Tim Melia.